Thank you all for being here. I am calling this regular meeting of the Willits City Council of November 14th to order. And we will start with a, what's going on here? Call the pledge of the flag. All rise, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And a roll call, please.
Yes. Councilmember Gonzalez?
Here.
Strand?
Yes.
Barnes?
I am here.
Rodriguez?
Present.
Mayor Strong?
Present. Okay, well, we have a correction to, or an amendment to the agenda.
Yes, thank you. After our agenda was posted, we learned that there was a development in the Jeanette Brown versus City of Willits case that needs to be added to your closed session agenda. And it's something that I'd like to discuss with you in closed session that really cannot wait till your next meeting. And so I'm requesting that there be a motion, a second, and a vote on that amendment.
Okay. So is there any comment on adding an agenda item or not? Maybe not.
The public can comment, but we can't really comment about the...
No, right, but if anyone has a comment, otherwise we will entertain a
I'll take a
motion.
motion to amend the agenda as.
Second it.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any question or discussion?
Just a notation that we're going to continue our other closed session item.
Yes, yeah, we will also, after that item, we will continue the closed session that we just came from after this meeting as well, which is a staff review item. So we'll have a roll call vote on the extension, the addition to our agenda.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Yes.
Strand?
Yes.
Ornstein?
Yeah.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mayor Strong?
Yes. Okay, so that will be coming at the very end of the meeting. And now we can move on to, this is very confusing. The public matters, or do we have the public communications first? I'm sorry. My agenda isn't the usual format, so I'm having trouble. So anybody who would like to address the city council on matters that are not on the agenda, that are within the jurisdiction of the city, and you're allowed to speak to us for up to 3 minutes, and you're allowed to criticize the city or whatever you want to say. Anybody want to speak to us on a non-agendized item? Come on up, and if you could, and not by yourself, it's helpful for us. Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity to talk to you guys tonight. My name's Joe Miller, and I live in Weaverville, California. And I'm the timber manager for Trinity River Lumber, Schmidt-Bauer Lumber, and North Fork Lumber. And in the past year, I opened up this log yard at the north end of town. Okay, so in the hopes that we could help the people of Willits and the community around with so much timber supply around here, that we could get some actual competition in the area and make the landowners around it that are fortunate enough to have timber to sell, have a choice anyhow. So we open up the log yard, and our hope is to continue the operations of that log yard. And we've run about 15 to 20 million feet this summer through that log yard. So as you know, the summers in Willits are hot, just like in Weaverville, okay? So you can't put logs in there all summer without water on them. And so we don't have a recirculation pond or anything like that. And in Weaverville, all our other locations, we have ponds and run 2.5-inch rainbirds on the sprinklers on the log decks 24/7. We don't have the capability to do that here. So I came up with a mister system that keeps the log decks cool and evaporates. There's no runoff. And so we got our first water bill, and it was outrageous. We're not going to be able to operate here if we continue. So the last few months, our water bill has been about $9,000. to operate there. And I've done a lot of research on communities similar size to Weaverville and Willits, and you guys are almost double the price for a unit, which is 100 cubic feet of water. So most places run in between $3 and $4 a unit. You guys are almost $8. So we've had a log yard in Oroville we ran for 30 years almost, and it's a big part of the community in Oroville, and we'd like to become a big part of the community in Willits. And we're a huge asset to your tax base. We keep loggers working, truckers working, they buy fuel. We have three employees, you know, and I would just like to see some help so we don't have this exorbitant water bill every month that we have to pay. I live in Weaverville. I mean, that's why I tried to get up here first, because I have to drive home 5 hours. And these logs in that yard, half those logs that are on the north end of the high school there, they have to go to Weaverville. So there's a very small margin for profit in those logs. And if we have to absorb a huge water bill every month, and the water doesn't go back into the water system and have to be processed over, it's used and it evaporates.
Yeah.
And then we turn it off at night, I'm done.
I'm afraid your 3 minutes is up.
No, my hope is that you guys will consider giving us a discount on our water rates to continue that yard. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you know, we're gonna look for another small community that would like to work with us somewhere down here.
All right,
And I
so-
hate to see that happen to the town of Willits.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Can I ask a quick question, just for, it's on the other side of the high schools where you're
North side of the high school.
Okay, that
And we
was,
spent $50,000 fixing the drainage for the high school earlier this summer. Put a ditch in, local contractor did it for us. I mean, we're gonna be a huge part of this community if you guys will help us out. Otherwise, you know, we're gonna have to look for somewhere else to do our business, and I hope that doesn't happen. So, if you guys,
Yeah.
I know I'm out of time, but if you guys,
I want to ask you a quick question.
yes.
Do you need to use potable water for your operation?
No, well, we'd love to take a line just from the treatment plant and run it right to us. That would be fine.
I'm going to ask you to talk to the young man with the cap on in the third row.
Raise your hand.
Scott.
Young man.
To see if there's a non-potable option for you.
Right.
So,
Okay.
It's all,
and-
it's all bottom line, you know, how
Yeah,
it's business, so.
yeah, as for potable water, you know, our rates run by, we do have rates set by how much we actually spend on producing the water. And it's up to council, if they wanted to give a discount, they could certainly consider that. However, that would result in an increase to other ratepayers because it all sort of has to balance out. But perhaps we have some solutions in terms of non-potable options, so you know, maybe have a talk with Scott.
The people in charge, and they said, this is the forum for me to come and get the ball rolling.
Yeah,
Right,
this is fine, and
so-
then we can ask for staff to look into whether there's some options that would be, would give you some relief on that. But we can't really charge different rates to
Right.
different
No, I
customers.
mean,
But-
just
but
as an
maybe-
example, in Weaverville, we have a creek that runs, and we have,
I think we're kind of getting
Yeah,
into.
Right.
yeah, we can't really
We're
discuss
getting
it,
off
but Scott can give you his card, and then you can talk to him offline.
Yeah, and I'd like to, hear back if we come
thank
up
you
with
for your
something.
time, I appreciate it.
We don't want to
I got a
turn the
5-hour
business
drive
over.
back home.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for coming and
Thank you.
bringing that to our attention. Okay, any other public communications from anybody? Come on up. Thank you.
He doesn't do public speaking, so I'll speak for both of us. Hi, I'm Cindy Sales, and it's my husband Craig Sales. And we live across the street from the empty lot on Walnut and Main, and which is now having some building going on over there. There were 3 storage units that we had questions about what exactly the company that was going to have a business there was going to be doing. We raised the question about what the nature of this building, or this treatment plant might be from what we had heard when we were here at the August 22nd meeting, is that they will have materials that have been contaminated by radiation, and they would treat it to remove the contamination, but we couldn't get any idea of what exactly that was going to involve. They have said that they are going to have, and this was from what I read in the agenda, was that they intend, or they had presented to this, that they would use Poplar as a way to bring their trucks and things in. We live on Poplar. We've lived there for 25 years. We were the second owners of the house that we own. We're a stone's throw away from Remco. So we were there during all of that catastrophe. We don't need something else coming into the community that we aren't aware of. And so our questions were, do they have a business license? Has there been any EIR reports done on it? You know, how do we get information? What's going on over there? They've moved 2 of the containers and now they're building a building around it. So we just would like to know if the city can tell us what's going on. Nobody seems to have answers.
I mean, there's no building permits that have been processed into the paper or anything like that, what they're planning on doing. I mean, it's, we hear one thing and hear a different thing, you know, it's.
Okay, so, you want to
Sure, I'll respond. This particular parcel did have a land use permit come up for the Planning Commission, City Council, in which it was explained by both our building official and by our community development director and what was exactly going on the site. They are here today. They could certainly, I think it's appropriate that they can talk about what is happening, what that they know so far, and I would invite them to do that now, if that is your pleasure.
They're here?
Oh, well, yes, we've got, Dusty's
You have
here.
to see what they
Okay, not that,
No, not that they are, no, Dusty and Christopher and actually Chris Wilkes was also checked out the site and what was going on. And so in the spirit of full, of what they know, we can let folks know.
Okay.
Thank you, Dusty.
Yeah, no problem. Good evening, Council. Dusty Dooley, Community Development Director. So, yeah, staff is aware of the development that's occurring on this property. And just to kind of give you a snapshot of where we are now and what, what certainly has been presented to staff. The current owners have received a building permit to construct an office building. They've also received a use permit that was approved by this council that allows them to build a single-family home in conjunction with operation of a permitted commercial use on the property. The property zoned administrative office, that's our CO zoning. It's really related to the old hospital that used to be there. And what the zoning intent is to mainly allow for administrative and professional offices. So whether that's a real estate office or a architect, engineer office, or even medical office, a dentist, a doctor, that's what the permitted use is. There's other uses allowed too, undertaking, which is allowed in all our zonings, and a couple other ones. What's not allowed is like any type of storage of hazardous materials, operation of scientific equipment. You would not be allowed to bring in hazardous material and then use your equipment to clean it on site. You're not supposed to have a bunch of trucks coming in and creating, significant increases in traffic in the neighborhood. What they're allowed to do is have a single-family home consistent with the use permit that was approved. They're allowed to construct the building that's currently underway, and they can come. They have not come in for a business license. When they do come in for a business license, we can approve an administrative or professional office. So if they need an office space to conduct business, that's fine. But again, just for example, those other activities I described would not be allowed. Those type of activities are typically reserved for our industrial type zoning. And so if that's what they are interested in doing on the property, they could not do it on this property, and we would certainly direct them towards the appropriate type zone properties.
So right now they already have a building permit, but they don't have a license, business license yet.
I'm not aware that a business license has been
And when they do, that would be
submitted.
subject to review.
Correct.
And we do not, by the way, take action on any of these items, that are just to inform you.
Can I just ask a question,
Where it
a
stands.
clarifying question?
Sure.
I mean,
Sure.
they're building a building that obviously is not an office. It's a storage something or other. when they come for the business license sometime in the future, and you discover that what they intend to do on that property does not fit into the zoning, you can tell them that they can't operate there.
Yeah,
No, but they've already spent a fair amount of money to get to that point. I'm just wondering if maybe it would be appropriate to have a sit-down right now with them.
I think that's already
so
been-
I've spoken to the operator as recent as yesterday. I also spoke to the operator before they purchased the property. I spoke to the operator before they had ideas for putting in the building in the single-family home there. And we had the conversation of, what the heck are you guys doing there? Like, right, it's different, okay? Because I'm not gonna say it's odd because I'm too odd to call anybody odd. But it was clearly explained, these are the allowed uses. If you want to set up an office, that's fine. If you want to have equipment in dead storage that's not being used, that's fine as well. You can't store hazardous stuff, but if you want to store your collectible stuff, that's fine. You're allowed to have that storage. You know, we appreciate the fact that they're building the building to encompass the storage containers from an aesthetic perspective. You know, but if they're here to try to bamboozle staff, we've got the community that's on high alert. Staff's already there. I know the council from the questioning at the last meeting is there as well. So they've been forewarned.
Okay.
Numerous times, every opportunity that's been given, and as recent as yesterday. You're right. If they want to build a building and then propose a use that's not allowed in the zoning, then, well, at least we got a new building. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, that's their prerogative, and that's.
That was my
Yeah.
question,
Okay.
and thank you. You've answered it perfectly. I mean, they've been warned. If they've wasted all that money, it's on them.
Definitely.
I have a question.
Okay, question?
When you submit for a building permit, you have to provide architectural designs. Did it include 2 canisters in the middle of the design?
I'll look at Christopher.
Good evening, Christopher Morgan, building official. Yes, it did include the cargo containers in that design, and it was engineered. So I thought it was a little bit interesting. I also won't use the term odd, but it was designed that specific way for sure. So everything that's happening is per the plan that was approved.
That's a pretty robust building for just enclosing a couple of shipping containers.
Which is why I thought it was interesting.
Yeah.
And so, as Dusty pointed out, there were multiple conversations, and I've had complaints there of work happening after 10 o'clock at night, people living on site, so I investigated that yesterday. And, what they had was a generator running through the night to charge their scissor lift. So I told them that our ordinance doesn't allow you to work past 7 p.m. So I told them that needed to be shut down by 7 p.m. every night. And, so far, everything that's approved is what they're doing, and it's not something that we're having a blind eye to. It's being looked at, that it stays within the confinements of what it was permitted for.
Good. Thank you.
Would it be appropriate for council, if council's interested in giving direction, that at future meetings we get just a brief update as to the status of this property during the portion of the meeting where we discuss building inspection and activity reports, that sort of thing?
We could ask that.
I heard you.
Okay. And I saw you had just already.
One last question on, being in construction when I was younger, rebar was maybe 16-inch squares. When they put the rebar underneath them cargo containers, you could walk across it without touching the dirt. That's a lot of rebar.
Sort of
That's what they
overbuilt.
Put in bridges out here,
Well,
but I don't know
Yeah.
who. the building
It's probably for the
permit
nuclear
was.
reactor.
Like I said,
And-
they
and-
were working later at night trying to get this foundation.
okay, and there was another, before, Chris, before you say what's the other,
Does anybody know what's in the said containers? Anybody done
Well, we
inspections,
asked
know
that.
what's in them?
Have him come up to the front so that
okay.
You know, we're
is-
really,
can't
we're
do
really
this.
getting into a detailed discussion
That's
about
true.
something that's followed from public communication. And
Okay.
we probably have
Okay.
spent more time on this than we really
You're
should.
probably right, Jim. So I think we have kind of given direction that at our next meeting, we should, or when our building inspector is giving reports, we can kind of get an update on this in the future. Okay?
Right.
All right, thank you for
Thank you.
for coming, bringing, all right. Were there any other public communications before we go to public matters, which are on the agenda? John, let's check.
Hi, John Haschak, and it's a weird situation because the vote count hasn't been finalized for the third district supervisor. But if it continues the way it is going, then I look forward to working with all of you. And if it comes to be that I am selected as the third district supervisor, I really look forward to being a partner with the city and working together on all sorts of issues that come up, you know, whether it's housing or, you know, emergency preparedness, whatever it is. I hope you can count on me. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Do you plan on, John, do you plan on coming to regular meetings to kind of update the council on what's going on?
Certainly,
Good,
yeah, as much as possible.
good. Thank you.
I'm looking forward to it, too. Anybody else want to speak to us? And then we're moving ahead to public matters. The first item is a discussion and possible adoption of a resolution approving the memorandum of understanding between the City of Willits and the Willits Police Officers Association. And Karen.
All right. Good evening, Mayor Strong, council members. The city has negotiated a very sound, solid contract with the Willits Police Officer Association. It was ratified recently in November, and the three-year term would be November 14th, 2018 through June 30th, 2021. I know that we have revised memorandums for your review. I do want to kind of go over some of the changes. It really, I was waiting for the final ratification and the feedback from the POA so that I could give you a clean copy. But I know, you know, I had to turn it in last week, so it still had some some items that needed to be cleaned. But bottom line, it was that, you know, I could go over all of them, but they're really just corrections to the term of the contract on the page, on the title page, which is again November 14th. But everything else was just, you know, some of the required changes, the red line changes, had yet to be final approved. I think it's a solid, like I said, a solid contract. I think it's very fair for the city. I think it's also very fair for the WPOA. You can see that I give you a brief synopsis of what we are agreeing to, and that is a 2% salary increase, which would be our COLA for each year of the MOU. We do want to have, and I have attached in the back of the memorandum, all the titles and reflecting the 2% increase, which would take place. And the one-time payment in the amount of $1,000 payable in December. It would be the first full paycheck in December, which I want to say is the 16th of December. We want to also pre-fund the REMIF HSA participants for for the remaining 2018-19 year. And if you remember when we first started doing it, just said, we did pre-fund right up front, and we really felt that it was, again, a best interest to our police officers because, currently we pay it in the middle of the month and it's once a month. But, the contract starts in June and if you, or July, and if you have to go to the doctor and, before December, you may be stuck with a high bill and yet you still don't have your HSF funding. So it does make it easier for the police officers to, take care of their health. And so we thought we would pre-fund up front. Now, what happens is we do go by fiscal year. So, in January, there is a tax change, but which usually went up from $1,300 to $1,350 for single, but we go by fiscal year. So what we want to do is pay for the remaining of 18 and through 19, and then go forward in July and pay up front so they have the ability to seek care. We also want to reduce the monthly contributions for the employee paid offerings for the 250 and the 500 plan. As you know, you guys have the 500 plan. We also want to increase 5% for regular pay for the dispatchers who obtain post-intermediate and advanced certification. It always benefits the city as well as that employee to get additional training. Right now, we already give the 5% post to sergeants and police officers, and we have neglected our dispatchers. So this way, they'll continue to go seek training on their own, and we clearly benefit from that. The other thing we want to do is increase the Classic PERS members. We want to give them an additional 3% pay raise because we also on the back end are going to have them pay an additional 3% into CalPERS, and that's a CalPERS regulation. So they are going to pay at 12% with the rest of the city. So it was just bringing us into compliance, and that took place in July 1st. So we have been collecting that amount, and we simply want to reimburse them. And the 2% salary increase will be prorated back to July 1st. And then, there's some other changes. If you want me to go into them, I certainly can. I don't know if Kathy provided you with the breakdown of what those changes actually were from contract to contract, but I think it's been pretty. Did you provide this, Kathy? No? Okay. Well, I just put together a cheat sheet for the city for us to know and for payroll to know what kind of changes are taking place. Like I said, it's a very sound contract, and I'd like to adopt the resolution for the MOU, and I'd also like to adopt the resolution to put it into place.
And I wanted to add something. In the resolution, as we're doing the MOUs, there's often a lot of going back and forth with the union regarding little typos and little changes that need to happen, all non-monetary, to sort of make it correct and to comport with our understanding with negotiations. And so in that resolution, you are also authorizing me to make those small typos and things within the MOU so that you don't have to come back and see it every time we correct a typo. Like one of those things is that may be a little bit confusing is that the IBW contract currently is up, and we're going to talk about that soon, is up in December, but we got it done early, so their contract starts in November 14th. However, the POA's contract actually ended in June 30th, so this contract will actually be back-ended to that contract, so we'll actually start July 1st. And so that was a little bit confusing for people, so that date will change. It's going to be July 1st, 2018 to June 20th, so things like that. And those are non-monetary, but they're just sort of cleanup things.
It's monetary in that, but what she already explained is that the raise becomes effective back then. And
yes, that's all the same. Yeah. All that is the same. Just so.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the resolution adopting the contract.
And authorizing minor.
It's in the resolution.
It's in the resolution. Okay.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Thank you, Karen. That was very helpful. Any comments from the public on this? Any questions or comments from the council members? In which case, we can go to a roll call vote.
Yes, Councilmember Gonzalez.
Yes.
Trustee.
Yes.
Ornstein.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Frenchco.
Yes.
Thank you.
And we're going to continue to the next contract.
Move on to the next one. For IPW, yes, we were very lucky to get them to meet with us sooner, which, you know, we had really no idea where the city was going, but we were very encouraged by what we were seeing with our finances. So, you know, we sat down with them, and again, very good contract, for all of their members. And we had a unanimous ratification, so I'm very happy to say that. Their contract would have ended on would have expired the last day on December 31st. But we all know how everybody's on vacation and stuff like that, so we sought to get it to come early. And it is very similar, as you know, to the POA contract, where we are authorizing a 2% increase for the first 3 years of the contract. What we have done differently with this particular contract is that their contract would normally, again, be up in January. So we'd like their first 2% increase to take place effective the first full pay period in January. And then they will have their second year increase on July 1st in 2019, and the last 2% increase on July 1st of 2020. So they don't get a raise in 2021, but that's because we are giving it in advance. Actually, they were very agreeable to that. They asked for it was obviously a lot of negotiations, let's just say. We also agreed to a one-time payment of $1,000. This is non-perishable, but it's subject to withholding, and they would be paid in December, and again, we're anticipating that to be December 16th. We also want to pre-fund the HSA. The EPO contributions will be reduced, and they'll have 2.5% increase above regular pay for a number of plant operators who obtain various certification and actually perform the work. And this would be our ELAB certification, where if we can obtain certification, bring the plant up, and Scott could go into more detail if you have questions, but we would, you know, that's a savings of $11,000 by not seeking outside. That's how much it will cost. We also are going to be giving an increase to dual certificates, which again, that's an amazing thing. Most of our people, they have treatment, collection, and distribution certification. So we want to continue to have our folks become more educated and be as certified as they can possibly be. But we are going to put limitations on how many that can actually have it.
Karen,
And then, yes, sir.
question on that. Is this 2.5% for each certification?
It is for if they have ELAB, if they have dual certification, and if they have backflow. So not everybody, let's talk about backflow. Right now, there's really only one person doing the work, but we're going to allow 2 employees to get certified. Now, more employees could get certified, but no more than 2 people will be doing the work.
But I guess my question was,
let me clarify.
if he gets more than one certification?
Yeah.
They don't stack them.
We do stack them,
Yes, we do.
however, we've put a limit on it, so we're only going to give backflow certification to 2 people, and there's a limit to only 2 people getting that. The same thing with the ELAB, that's a limit of 2 people, and with the dual certification, that limit is 4. There is a possibility if you have both dual and ELAB, yes, those can be stacked. If there's more people who are qualified than there are numbers of certifications, it will go by seniority, and that was a negotiated thing. It's by seniority.
So stacked means?
If you have both dual certification and you have ELAB and you're using it, it is a potential for you having getting 5% extra.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, and it is by seniority if there's more than.
And it's from actual people doing the work.
Yes, and if you you have the certification and you don't actually do ELAB work, you don't get the certification.
Or you don't get the raise.
So Karen,
Yeah.
You can get the
Yeah, I'm sorry, the cert pay. You don't get cert pay.
So Karen, the benefit obviously is that Scott would have that redundancy in case somebody
Yes.
were hurt or left. He'd
If
have
somebody goes on vacation, or if he needs to cross-train, absolutely.
All right.
And it encourages our folks, again, not only do they have to attend it, but then they have to maintain it. And in order to maintain it, you have to utilize it, so.
I will make a motion at this point to,
Before you do so, can I just add a couple of things? One more thing?
try to jump ahead.
There's a few resolutions in this.
I know,
staff
I'm really excited that you like to approve it, because we spent many hours on it. But what I also would like to add in is, we have non-represented employees. And traditionally, for many, many, many years, as you can attest, we have always had the unrepresented employees follow the IBEW contract, which means that they also get whatever they get. So if they get increases, then unrepresented would get it as well.
traditional Me Too.
Traditional, Me Too. So we would like to, yes, adopt the MOU and the resolution for IBEW and the resolution for the unrepresented employees at the same
And
time.
the resolution for the corresponding salary range.
Yes.
And this can all be done in one?
It's two resolutions.
Actually, it's three. It's
Three.
three
Well,
resolutions.
I consider the other one already done. The only one upgrade that I would like to make, and I didn't know if I was really gonna bring it separately, but on the master classification, January 1st, minimum wage goes up to $12 an hour for those employees who are, for companies that have more than 25 employees. So it really won't impact us, but it's the poor people that, they're gonna go up $1, for, everybody will go up $1, but we do have people that are making less than $12 an hour, but that really won't take place till right around May, so it really doesn't impact the budget that much, because it's just going to training at that point.
Can we do one,
I think you can, if we just identify each of the resolutions.
all right, I would,
Three resolutions, yeah.
all right, I would like to make the motion to the city approve the resolution approving the memorandum between the City of Willits and the Willits International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. Another, same motion, that we also approve the resolution approving and authorizing adjustment to salaries and benefits to unrepresented employees. And the final one, the resolution of the City Council of Willits approving the new employee position classification and corresponding salary range.
Thank you.
All right, is there a second?
Yeah, second.
Is there anybody from the public who would like to address us on this question? If not, we will go to a roll call.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Yes.
Excuse me. Strasburg.
Yes.
Bernstein.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Restro.
Yes. Thank you, Karen.
Nice job.
Yeah, that was a lot of work went into that. So we are now on item C, public matters. Discussion possible adoption of a resolution awarding a contract to High Country Security for an amount not to exceed $13,846 and some change for a security camera system at the wastewater treatment plant, and authorizing the city manager to execute such document.
Yes.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Yeah, we wanted to bring this, just received the quote, about a month ago, to get this completed. We did an upgrade with the security system last fiscal year, just so we had an armed interior. All our buildings are armed. So this is just going to add to being able to surround the whole area with video surveillance 24/7. Very similar to the one we have at the water treatment plant.
All right, are there any
Question.
questions? Yes.
So, how does it work? If there's an intrusion, who gets notified?
The operator that's on call.
The operator?
Yeah.
If it's a security intrusion, the operator
There's
deals with that?
there's different intrusions, so they'll get called, and if it's so then the PD, if they need to go, they will call the PD for assistance.
All right, so it goes to the operator always?
Yeah.
And then the operator decides who else to call in if necessary?
Correct.
Okay.
So is it a company or a monitoring service?
It's actually the company, it's High Country Security. They've done a number of security systems.
I guess my question is, is it an automated deal where it dials up the individual? Or
Correct.
is it, it's not going to a answering service that then calls?
No, it's the actual, they control all that.
Okay.
And so they run that security system through them. And it's, we've entered all the operators' numbers to them and with on-call schedule, and then they call the person that's on call.
So the alarm goes off and they call the operator, the plant operator.
Only one thing, Scott, I'm not trying to micromanage it, there's more of a, from dealing with alarms, if the power goes or something and it needs to be reset, you might want to just make sure you've covered that.
Yeah.
So that we don't actually not get an alarm when the power's gone or something.
And they got a backup generator, it automatically starts.
Okay.
Okay.
But it will call if it does.
Any other questions? Larry?
When the alarm goes off and it goes to the operator, about approximately how long does it take the person that's in charge or the PD to get to the water?
They typically have, well, we have a 30-minute range to respond.
What was
to
that again?
We have a 30-minute time frame to respond to a call.
Okay.
That used to be 15 minutes. We've extended it out a little bit to give, some people some time. Because you're not always, you're ready, but you're not always ready.
Well, I guess that raises the question of how much time is necessary given, a variety of alarms. I mean, is that, I don't know what could happen. What are the possibilities and the downsides of the time frame?
The time frame? Well, typically it's,
I guess what I'm asking is if it's a break-in, for example, or if it's a fire or something like that, half an hour obviously won't be enough.
no, yeah, you obviously, so sorry, let me restate, that's the longest amount we're requiring. So instantly, if you live in Brook Trails, it's gonna take you maybe 15 minutes to get down there. If you're in town, maybe 5-6 minutes, They try to, when they get a call, they try to respond right away.
And when the alarm comes in, does the operator know the nature of the
Yes.
problem? So that, would the operator then, if it warrants it, would they call the police before leaving home?
Most likely, if that's
I
what.
mean, I want to know if the protocols are in place for these.
Sure, yeah. So there's different ones. There's like, it could be main building intrusion alarm, gate intrusion alarm, back door intrusion alarm. So they're notified on where it's coming from. And the addition of the security cameras is to be able to catch that too.
So is it an IP address, so if you called let's say you got the alarm, you would be able to call the PD and say, hey, look, there's an intrusion in the building.
Yeah.
And then could someone at the PD get on the internet and turn on basically look at the camera?
They're run 24/7.
What's that?
They run 24/7.
No, I know, but is it something you monitor outside or is it something you actually have to go in?
You go in.
Okay.
Sounds pretty standard of
Yeah.
most business operations
It is.
security system. The only difference, it would be the business owner making the call.
Yeah.
I have one other question out of curiosity. It has to do with the sales tax. 7.375, that's not the Willits sales tax, is it? So is that correct, that we do not get charged this half-cent sales
No,
tax
I
for
believe
something?
you get the 8.375, is that correct?
Yeah. But, so what I'm asking, I guess, is what's
Oh,
on
did
the
they put-
invoice?
They put that on there.
It's low? What's on the invoice?
Yes, it would be another percent.
Okay.
Would have to be.
Unless they weren't, if they're in a different jurisdiction, sales tax is point of sale.
Clear Lake.
So it's Clear Lake may be different.
Yeah, but they have to charge the,
It's point of sale, so the point of sale is Clear Lake.
okay.
And
got
just
it.
so you know, High Country Security does a lot of work in this area now. I'm on another-
But the sales tax based on where they are selling
I'm
from.
not aware of that, but I know that they are a company that does a lot of work in the area.
Okay, if there's no more questions, does anybody from the public want to address this question? And if not, and there weren't any other questions up here, we'll have another roll call vote.
Well, do we need a motion?
A motion.
I make a
Motion.
motion to
Motion.
accept staff's recommendations.
Second it.
Okay, moved and seconded. Now we can have a roll call vote.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Yes.
Stransky?
Yes.
Ornstein?
Yep.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mayor Strong?
Yes.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
Thank you. for keeping me on the straight and narrow here. And item D is a discussion possible adoption of a resolution for a contract with Paragon Tactical in an amount of not to exceed $75,000 for the purchase of replacement firearms training bullet containment systems. It's quite a mouthful. And we'll have our Chief of Police speak to us about this item.
I'm Scott Warnock, the Chief of Police. Yes, in 1995, because of environmental regulations, the police department was required to put a bullet trap system in our range that's on the watershed property to prevent lead from getting into the environment. And we've had that system, it's been repaired, it's been upgraded, and the fires in 2017, which amazed me. When I went up there expecting to see everything burned out at the range. There was a little trail that came down and hit the bullet trap system and burned it up, and all the trees and everything are still there. But it's kind of strange. So staff, being in the community development staff, did a lot of work getting this FEMA reimbursement and a grant from the state of California, from the OES, to replace the range. And our staff at the police department did the research on obtaining the best system to replace it. And the city has already received funding from FEMA. It's $81,500 and something dollars. It's over $81,000. The cost that we were given by this particular vendors is $74,000, almost $75,000 to do the installation and replacement. This particular company is the only one out of California. It's the only one that's EPA certified, although it's not required by state law for it to be EPA certified. It's also the only one that's certified fire resistant. We thought that was important, considering the history. Also, that's not listed on there, it's also a veteran, a disabled veteran owned. They were in the middle price range of all the ones that were available. There's not a lot of companies that do this. So anyway, we have the funding, we have cash in hand. If we don't utilize it or ratify this to utilize it, we risk the chance of losing the money after December 31st to replace the bullet trap system. The city has to match 6.5%, I think it is.
6.25.
Thank you, 6.25%. That money is going to come out of asset forfeiture if you approve this to supplement the money we received.
Any questions? Yes, Larry.
Does anybody else other than the Willits PD use this facility?
No, we started out, other agencies were using it, but the costs were too high for the city of Willits because every once in a while the lead has to be removed, and it's an expense to do that. Plus the other agencies weren't taking care of our range, so we haven't been allowing any other agencies to.
I ended that under my tenure.
Thank you.
Any other questions or any comments from the public? And if not,
Yeah, I do have a sort of a technical question about the fire retardant aspect of it. It's Class A fire rated. What does that mean?
What does that mean, Chris? Chief Wilkes?
I don't work for a UL, so.
I don't know.
It's a UL rating.
I don't know, but the other companies that produce these had no certification.
So basically what we're saying is the bullets are going to bounce off this rubber backstop and drop down, and the heat of the bullets will not start a fire.
No.
Can I add something?
Yes, please.
So that's not going to be what starts the fire. Basically, the rating is such that even a fire safe will catch and burn
Sure.
eventually. So it just basically means that up to a certain amount of fire exposure heat, it won't catch fire, but I think if it was super hot enough, parts of it may melt too.
If there's an external fire that's coming
Yeah.
through
Right,
that area.
It's designed to
such as
catch.
what happened
Okay.
may not have destroyed it.
If this is-
So it's not fire retardant against the fire, the rounds are being fired
No,
into it?
they're not
It's
hot.
outside source.
Now, usually it's a metal backstop with a rubber curtain of some sort.
Yeah.
You fire a bullet, it goes through the rubber part, that's to absorb some of the energy,
Right.
and then it hits the metal backstop and then drops down into the container.
And this is like am I reading this right? It's 2 feet of engineered rubber media. Is this 2 feet thick or?
The rubber media is thinner, but the absorbent part of it is the 2 feet. The whole backstop itself takes 25 feet.
Right.
Mounted on a concrete pad.
Gotcha.
Okay.
And it's 35 feet wide.
And your guys are good enough that they're gonna stay inside that?
Well, there's one person here today who's from the police department who's the best shot in the police department. I don't know why I added that. That has nothing to do with anything.
Thanks, Scott.
It's a brag.
Okay, so we did not have anyone from the public, and we've asked our questions, so I would entertain a motion in a second.
I recommend the recommended action.
I'll
Okay.
second.
Moved by Larry, seconded by Jerry. And a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Yes.
Yes.
Swansky?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Masha?
Yes. Okay. And we are now on the last item on public matters, an update from the NCRM.
I'd like to actually put this item off. The person who is going to be giving this report is commuting from some distance, and he has not made it here yet.
Oh.
So if we could,
Though we could come back to it
we
later.
can come back
if
to it.
gets here in time.
He is expected.
Okay, all right, so that item will be deferred until our,
He is off.
It'll be deferred until later, because he's still expected.
yeah, he's,
He has quite a long drive.
a long drive to get here. Okay, so we're going to move along on our agenda. We do not have any ordinances to enact today. Consent calendar has the minutes of October 24th, the regular meeting and the special meeting of October 24th, and authorizing a letter in support of Walk and Bike Mendocino's grant application for a feasibility study on bringing bike share to Mendocino County. Are those items all appropriate for a consent calendar?
I just wanted a quick question, not a discussion on the bike shares. Are we talking like those little green bikes that are just there, or more of not a motorized ones, just a regular bicycle?
It's a regular bike, and it's just a feasibility study.
All right.
Yeah, so this would only be looking at whether such a thing is feasible. It's not really,
I'll move the consent calendar.
okay, have a second?
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded, and anyone from the public want to speak on that? If not, we can do that by a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
You're opposed?
No, aye.
I should say.
It was the echo off.
Okay, so it was unanimous. All right, informational reports. We have a building inspection activity report and business license report. And I'll probably get a verbal later on the meeting. If anyone's unhappy with decisions made by the council, they have a right to appeal. Commissions and agencies and authorities. Now, this is where any of us who are serving on other boards and agencies can, is that correct, or is that for when is that when we're supposed to be a planning? It's not the planning commission
No.
thing? Okay, so that's later on. Okay, good. So moving on, city manager report recommendations.
Sure, I just have a couple items of information. There's going to be a joint city managers meeting with the city managers of Mendocino County and Humboldt County, with the League of California Cities city manager president Kurt Wilson of Stockton and Sarah Rounds this Friday, and we are hosting it here in Willits, and so that's going to be fun. and talking about issues of concern for our city managers. Tomorrow, the West Company is holding a class here at City Hall on business basics. Turn your ideas into action. And that's starting at 6 o'clock. It's $25 for those who are interested. I encourage people to attend. There is a discount for chamber members. I did receive a proposal from our solid waste provider to raise our garbage rates by approximately 5%, and that would be in January. This is pursuant to a formula that has already been worked out. Our finance folks are checking the formula, and if the formula is correct, that will be in effect in January.
And that will affect everybody in the whole
Yes,
city? Yeah,
yes.
5%.
It's approximately 5.2%. I'll get back with you once make sure that our numbers check, and then that will happen.
Yeah, that's pretty hefty.
CPI last year was over 4%. And part of it is based on CPI and on some other factors, but the CPI was pretty hefty last year. Wanted to let you know that the Measure B committee meets next week. However, the Behavioral Health Committee met today. Their agenda came out and I sent it to all of you. And the one thing I wanted to sort of bring to your attention in the Measure B report was that the Kemper report that came out a few months ago was revised slightly in their construction numbers. And that's sort of my thing, and so I'm interested in that. Before, it had stated that construction numbers for a new hospital was $300 a square foot. I think everybody thought that was pretty low. They revised those upwards quite a bit. But at the same time, they they went to the rehab numbers for the old Howard Hospital, and they had first quoted the original quote that the Howard Foundation had brought. And they decided to ask an independent contractor of private hospitals for a number which was actually lower than that number. And I do not think that took into account prevailing wage, and they did not take into account any other numbers. So basically, there was an attempt to sort of equalize those numbers, which I thought was very interesting, and I do want to direct your attention to that. And
I think the actual Measure B meeting might be the 28th.
It might be next. I was reading it. If it's the 28th, usually it's the 3rd, but it may have been changed because of the Thanksgiving holiday. But I do. The Kemper report was interesting in the construction numbers, and so that was a change. And I think we should all be observant of those numbers, because I don't think that they've really been looked at in terms of prevailing wage, which is something you would have to do with a public facility. We also met, Dusty Dooley and I met with Supervisor Krosky about annexation issues and strategies in the county. We are looking at that. Dusty's been working with that, changing our spirit of influence and annexations, and we had a pretty in-depth conversation with Supervisor Krosky, and that was interesting. And the rest of the week, we've just been very busy with our MOUs. So that's it for our city manager's report.
Okay. Department recommendations. We usually, have anything from either our legal or administrative. Kathy, do you have anything?
Yes, I just wanted to touch on what Mr. Hashak was talking about. I did receive a notice last week from the county regarding the elections. As of last Thursday evening, we still had 16,730 ballots to count. So they are
countywide. Yeah,
countywide. So they're very busy. Third district supervisor, there's still 3,288 to count, and for the city of Willits, there's still 776. So we have until December the 6th to finalize the elections. Hopefully it will be a lot better than that, but they do have 30 days.
So that number is enough if they were all entirely one way or the other to maybe make a difference in some of those? Okay. Yeah. But usually they kind of fall into the same.
They do, but I just wanted to let you guys know.
Yeah, it's not final yet.
We stand right now.
And then there's some other states where it's really not final. Okay.
Or it is fun.
Any questions for Kathy? Okay. Anything from public safety? We have Oh, Karen.
Thank you.
Yeah, Karen.
I know I don't get up there very often, but HR department's been really working hard. So, that's just me, you know. I wanted to let you know that we have just hired 4 new people. We're very excited. We have 2 office assistants, one that will support the the Public Works Department, which includes Public Works, Utilities Superintendent, Engineering, and I think that's it. And we also have one that's assisting with City Hall. We have a senior accountant that will begin on December 3rd. And the most exciting is we will have our finance director starting on Friday. So we'll be bringing her to the December. I know it was really, we scored big. We scored big on that one. So we're very excited. We also, I'm in the works of planning a community blood drive. There is an extreme need for blood, and they've been knocking on my door on a regular basis, and so I did talk with my colleagues today, and we are moving forward. Hopefully it'll be in December or January.
Would be Red Cross again? Or?
Red Cross, right here in our community center. Last year, when we did it on behalf of one of our own employees, we did have over 60 pints. So we're really looking forward to have that again, especially because of the fire. So I will be publicizing the date and the times and seeking volunteers to assist me. And I think every one of you who came out and donated blood, and Jim will get you this time because you'll know where it is. And in light of that, we are also planning a wellness program and challenge to be rolled out in January. So in December, I will bring that to council with what that is, and we're looking forward to see how many of you would be willing to take on that challenge. We're gonna do a challenge by departments, whether it's just getting healthy, reducing stress, stop smoking, lose weight, just getting healthy, and being able to enjoy the fruits of your labor a little bit longer.
Can you do it retroactively?
Well, we'll still let you come in. And then also I will be going to a Calpera conference in Monterey, December 3rd to December 8th. This is at no cost to the city because our Rima pool pays for that, so makes it even better. But this is probably one of my favorite conferences because it does teach you about legislation and lawsuits, what's going on in the legal and labor area, and so I hope to come back to December City Council meeting and provide you with some insights that I've learned from that conference.
All right. So next on the list is public safety. Chris, do you want to speak to us? Congratulations. I know it's both Chris. Well, I was thinking of public safety, Chris, first.
I was so involved in
All right. Yeah. We'll get to you. Just
Mayor Strong, council members, I want to just take some time to say thank you. It looks like our Measure J is going to pass at 73%. It shows strong public support, and that's kind of how we've chalked it up. It really was a community effort. Without the community council, we had a political action committee, but the reality is the local service clubs and family members talking to friends and other family members and really doing public education amongst themselves seems to have made all the difference in the world. Our goal as we speak at the firehouse is even the no votes, hopefully when that building's built and they drive by, they'll be proud of it. And because we're all paying for it, whether we voted no or yes after it passes. So we'll make it a nice place, and we'll serve our community for a long road ahead, I'm sure. So thank you for your guys' continued support, and we are moving forward by the day. So we had a really good hour conversation today with our consultant, and we should see RFPs go out in mid-February.
Larry and then Jerry.
Are they going to tear the house down behind the fire station now as to make it larger for the new fire station?
Yeah, actually we have 3 folks at this point that are interested in moving it. so it doesn't have to be demoed. But yes, that would become the parking lot for the new
Okay.
fire station.
Andrew?
Actually unrelated to the firehouse, but kind of related to fire. We've had a couple of red flag days. Anything you'd like to send out to the community regarding what we should, we obviously, I guess our thoughts and prayers are with Paradise, and but at the same time, I'm thinking closer to home, anything you want to get out there to everybody?
Absolutely. Thank you for prompting me on that. Actually, just so you're aware, we do have a strike team leader and one engine and crew over in Paradise. Right, they're on shift today, actually. They've been working over there. Also, our county has provided for 7. Governor Brown puts some money towards pre-positioning of fire engines when red flag warnings are in place. We've sent out 7 times for red flag warnings, strike teams. Marin County, most of the other 6 times in Lake County, but they were on a pre-positioning strike team assignment when they got moved to the camp incident in Paradise. So it looks like the resources are available and they are moving them around as they should. We should pay close attention to that. It's cold in the mornings. We've had plenty of, no escape control burns, but we've had people burning that we've had to go out and have them stop just because of the weather. Well, when the sun comes out, those light flashy fuels are certainly susceptible to fire. And any wind, really Mother Nature plays the role. If wind comes up, it's a big deal for us. So we still, at this time, I believe in the burn ban still being in effect at this point. And we are not out of the woods yet as far as fire danger goes. So hopefully everybody is diligent and follows the rules. And that's why we haven't chosen to write burn permits early and hand those burn permits out and tell people when it's available, when the burn ban is lifted. We don't even write a burn permit until that time. So hopefully we can eliminate some of that. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, so is it true that the Mendocino Complex fire is no longer the most destructive fire in the history of the state?
That's true.
That was a very short-lived record.
Well, it's the largest. So most destructive and largest are 2 different things.
Oh, okay.
You know, we're well over 6,000 structures on the camp incident, and that's what they're.
So the area, the Mendocino Complex is still the largest area?
Much larger.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Do we have any thing to do with the ones in Southern California? We don't.
No, we could. We could be requested that, but at this time, no. And our county really doesn't send out more than 1 strike team. We don't have the resources available for that.
So is it safe to assume that we're in year-round fire season?
Last 3 years, it's appeared that way. You have to remember that last year on the Thomas fire down in Ventura, our crews came back December 22nd from the Thomas fire. Yeah. And you know, we were sending out strike teams in late March this year.
Wow.
So it's been busy.
Scary.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chris.
We're good.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So, okay, police chief. Nothing to report. Okay, now we're going into community development. So Chris, the other Chris.
I didn't really have anything. You were looking right at me, and I've discovered here in Willits, there's a whole lot of folks named Chris. So we had like a record month last month for permits, $3.3 million. So this month it's going to be a lot less. However, all those inspections are happening. So it's very, very busy out there right now. And I just wanted to let the council know, you may receive emails from the public, maybe complaining we're not responding. I'm just one person also, so I do respond as quick as I can. So I just wanted to let you guys know that. You'll probably see some things in your emails, but they are being addressed and responded to.
Just to relieve your anxiety on that subject, I had a conversation with some developers who in the past had been problematic to the city, and they praised you to the high heavens.
Oh,
they were so appreciative of your response and the way you dealt with the issues. So, good job.
That's good to hear. Thank you. Does anyone have questions for me? Didn't comb my hair either.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Okay, Dusty?
Yeah, Chris is a keeper, and thanks for sharing that sentiment from the development community. That's, I'm really glad to hear that. Just a couple positive things to share with the council. I'll start with, you remember the 4 EV charging stations that we were able to install with funding that the Mendocino Land Trust provided. They've been up and running for about 15 weeks. I just was able to pull some stats off the ChargePoint, the company that we're working with the stations there. They've been used 135 times. The average time that they're in use when someone parks and begins charging is 2 hours, 15 minutes. And then they remain idle for about 13 minutes afterwards. So one of the concerns was that after it's charged, they're just going to leave them sitting at the station, either just because or because of the fact that we established the $5 sitting fee after 30 minutes of remaining idle at the full charge. Average idle time is 13 minutes. So my assumption is most of the people using those charging stations are folks that are traveling through town. And they're parking their vehicle for about 2.5 hours. So hopefully that means they're having an opportunity to enjoy Willits for a moment and spend some of their money. We got our first check, $260. So we're not quite rich yet. We should still buy the lottery tickets, but you know, the cost of PG&E is estimated to be about a little bit lower than that. And so we did set the rates where we are recouping our funds and a little bit more to pay for any future maintenance issues or, you know, certainly the staff's time. We had a lot of engineering staff that spent a considerable amount of time working on the design for that. So we'll keep paying attention to it, but it looks like the rates we set were fair. Then other exciting news, the Department of Housing and Community Development, HCD, we sent our housing element that the council approved onto them. They've gotten back to us and written an official letter. Our housing element has been certified and found to be in full compliance with state law. Cool. So I just want to thank the council for supporting staff through the process and getting us a product that now keeps us eligible for going after a number of state funding, whether it's SB1 funds, SB2 funds, CDBG grant funds. So the unfortunate part is we got it done in time just to start doing it again.
I was just going to ask, when is the next update required? Because
So we're already working with the company to look at doing an update to our plan. I'm anticipating that staff can take on some of the workload this time now that we have more staff in the department, and also recognizing that we just went through the process. And even though there are some additional requirements that need to be included in a housing element update review that have occurred since we started the previous cycle. The hope is that there's going to be less work for the consultants to do, and that should represent a lower cost for consultant fees on the matter. But staff would like to go ahead and we actually already have started getting an RFQ together to see what that the scope of work might be and what the cost would be. So we'll share that as soon as we get that information.
I have a question on the charging stations.
Yeah.
There are apps for phones and other things to let drivers know that these charging stations exist. Are we on them, or
Yeah.
how do we get? Okay.
Yeah.
We are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I don't know a lot about it, but the main ones that folks typically go to, my understanding is that we are on them, and I have visited a couple of them to verify that.
Good.
I had a question about that too. I'm impressed that they've been used 135 times, but I have not seen very many cars there, just 1 or 2 times when I go by.
Because we're charging, Match.
Well, I'm just, yeah, but anyway, I just wondered if there's any way in which we're out of line with the prevailing rates.
You know, when I was talking to the ChargePoint staff in establishing the fees, I was like, are we kind of out of bounds with our fees? And he's like, no, you guys are pretty average. He's like, I actually will tell people if they present something that's kind of out of whack with what other people charge.
So we're competitive.
It appears that way. And I mean, when I say 135 over 15 weeks, that's
not very many.
not 9 times a week.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Okay.
chances of you driving by, when I did pull these stats earlier today, there was one person charging. So actually, it's 136 times.
Okay. All right, so I guess there's not really anything we can do to increase the usage beyond that.
You know, in the future, we could look, to reduce the fee if we wanted, and it's, possible that, that we would see some sort of increase, but.
Sure.
Are we going to now shut off the one that we have here just for city staff or lock it up so that?
I would support that idea. Yeah, well, and that
I guess
brings
my
up
thought
another
is-
subject. When we passed, the Community Development Department has one vehicle that's typically used by the building official. But the other staff at times needs a vehicle too, and we tend to use our own vehicles. Or we do use this vehicle if by chance the building official, code enforcement officer doesn't need it. When we passed the cannabis ordinance, we dedicated $20,000 towards a new vehicle. There's a program that the state has where it gives a discount to electric vehicles, and
That's about to run out, I thought.
I'm not sure. I'll have to look into that. It might be true, but it's a little bit more than the $20,000 that we've set aside. But it might be, again, this is cannabis funds, and we might come back to the council and see if we can't get that number bumped up, purchase an electric vehicle, and then that charging station might be dedicated to that EV vehicle. Just a thought that I probably shouldn't have just blurted out in the meeting. Okay, yeah, that's my cue to sit down.
Okay. All right. Okay. Public Works has
No, I don't have anything.
no additional, okay. And engineering, no.
Suzanne?
Good evening. Suzanne Lutzis, Assistant Engineer in the city. He's going to help me get something up there.
So engineering actually had an item in their department, so are they going to go ahead and she's going to go ahead and do her item?
Okay, good. I kind of saw it after I almost skipped that.
Yeah, so I'm here hoping to get your permission and approval for plans and specifications for North Maple Street improvements and storm drain replacement project. And also get permission to advertise the project for bids. It's really early to have the project done. The reason why I'm coming to you this early is because if you want the city to move forward with the project, we need to get some permits going, and the permits are going to take several months. So we'd like to actually bid the project in late January and then construct it early summer when the water goes down. So just overall, North Maple Street runs perpendicular. It's a small cul-de-sac off of West Mendocino Street, which if you know where Sabrina lives, it's the road directly across from her house. It's that cul-de-sac, so it doesn't jump out immediately as maybe important, but if you ever walk down there or drive down there, what you're gonna see, I can get my mouse to cooperate. Down here, there's a house at the end on the east side, and in your agenda summary, it has a couple of pictures, and the street has actually gone down over a half foot, and it's damaging private property of the owner who lives at this street. And we think that the cause of the subsidence there is from a bad storm drain pipe. We went and we cameraed the pipe, and it's made out of really old metal, and it has holes in it. And what happens is when you have old metal with holes in it and it carries water, it tends to just suck the soil in around it and therefore create the cavity in the road. So that really should be fixed. It's potential hazard. I mean, people park there, and if they step out, they could easily trip. It's a tripping hazard on the sidewalk as well in front of the residents. Do you have a question?
Actually, I do. You know, I know that, I believe, because I spoke to a resident a long time ago, that as far as sewer, there's some folks with the lift stations there, or some sort of, I thought, and have you also checked the sewers to make sure in this project, it's not like pulling a Band-Aid off and you have
Yeah,
something
no,
else?
the sewer's on the other side of the
Oh, okay.
street.
So
I don't
it's-
think there's a lift station around
Oh,
there, but I think that's all gravity right there. And
Okay.
it's on the west side of the street, so.
Okay.
I'm looking at the photograph here, and am I seeing rebar in the gutter? The black diagonal stripes from
No,
the
I don't
street?
think so.
I don't think it would be. There wouldn't be
No, I
rebar.
haven't seen rebar out there.
I think that's a shadow.
So
Yeah.
so what you're talking about is, it looks like there's this black line between the gutter and the street. Is
Are you
that what you're talking?
looking at the top photo or the bottom photo?
I'm talking at the top one, the photo of the tree.
Uh-huh,
And at the curb and gutter, it looks
Uh-huh.
like there's, the street itself
uh-huh.
looks a little lower than the gutter. Is that what you're referring to?
If you look on the left side, there's a pocket where you can see an obvious indentation.
Oh, I see.
So
Depression,
one
right.
problem also is the tree is actually, the roots are protruding into the storm drain, which again just causes another area for soil to go down. So the idea of the project is to basically replace all of that storm drain. It's about 400 feet. And then add additional storm drain. You can see two laterals going off of the main line here and here. So basically, we need to dig a trench, replace 400 feet of storm drain. But if you walk down the road, what you'll notice is that the road isn't gonna hold up very well to the trench work. And there's also a dip on on the west side of the curb and gutter where this arrow is pointing over here. There's also a dip in the road, and it ponds, and there's like a algae pond that kind of lives there. So we thought, since we were gonna be over here, we'd go ahead and replace and straighten out this curb and gutter as well, and add this pipe and connect this into one outfall. This street is kind of interesting. It has 3 storm drain outfalls, which is very strange. It's way too many. They don't all need to be there. This one isn't working right. It's eroding the bank, so we're gonna abandon that outfall and run the curb and gutter back this way and funnel it all into the main pipe that we've replaced. So when all of this work is done and you have all of these trenches and you have the street in the condition that it's in currently, what happens is you're gonna end up with a potentially really bad looking street. So the best thing to do for this street, our recommendation, is to overlay the street with new asphalt. When you overlay a street with new asphalt, by law, you also have to upgrade to be ADA compliant on the curb. So we have these 2 new ADA compliant ramps going in here. This storm drain, I think, will be really nice because these ramps are really flat, and this is West Mendocino, right by a school, so there's lots of people walking here. So we want to put an inlet here so that we can take the water out before people cross over the flat space into a bird bath, essentially. Another component of the project is the outfall at this pipe is on Mill Creek. And we went down there, and what's happening is because the pipe is old and has a big hole in it at the outfall, it's actually created this like cave underneath the bank. And so that really should be fixed. Otherwise, we're gonna be basically putting in 400 feet of new pipe and then have this really bad kind of old, not so good pipe at the end. And we don't want the bank to become unstable. So that should really be modified as well. And that's why we need permits. We need Water Board, Fish and Wildlife, Army Corps permits for that. So that's, in a nutshell, what's going on here. We do have to do a little bit of grading here because it's just sunken in so much that we have to fill it back in with, if it's in the road, with base, if it's in private property, landscape soil, and we also have to replace some of their walkways because they're just so sunken in. So one piece of the project is that there is some work that will need to be done on private property. What the city has a standard, we have a right of entry agreement that we enter into with the property owners that describe the work and give us permission to do the work on their property. And so that's what the project is.
I want to ask you a quick question. It looks like your plans and specs are almost complete. And who completed those?
Me.
And I wanted to congratulate you on that.
Thank you.
To have that kind of expertise in-house is pretty unusual. And I wanted to commend Suzanne Lautis for doing that. It's a pretty complicated project, and we are very lucky to have that here.
Thank you. They're not totally complete only because we're waiting to hear back from the regulatory bodies to see if they want us to change anything at the outfall. But thank you.
Would that be a budget amendment if the money was more than this, or does this have a?
No, I accounted for the outfall. I mean, the bids are gonna come in what they come in at. So we have money in the budget that's for this project. I think we put 340 in there. My estimate's at 325,
Okay.
but we don't have bids yet.
How do you serve the residents there while, since you're doing both sides of the street simultaneously and all that, how are they going to deal with access during the construction?
Well, they'll be informed, and then people can generally go in and out as they wish, but there'll be small periods of times where they just won't be allowed to go in and out. Short amounts of time while they're paving.
Okay, sort of like Main Street.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Right. All right, any other questions from up here? Any comments from the public? Nobody who lives on that street is here too.
They know us.
Okay. So if there's no other,
I'll move staff's recommendation. Thank you, Susan.
Second it. Go ahead, Ron.
Larry seconded. Okay, that was the time. All right, roll call vote on this.
Yes, Councilmember Gonzalez.
Yes.
Stransky.
Yes.
Bernstein.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
I have to abstain because I live within 500 feet.
Oh, got it. Hairstyle?
Yes. Were you allowed to sit and listen to it?
I've never said any comments.
Okay, that's right. Okay, so moving on, that is all of our department recommendations.
We actually have the gentleman from NCRM, so if you would like him to speak when the water department is.
All right, so this is back to item 3D, 3E. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, yes, I remember him from before. Come on up.
Well, I apologize for being late. I was in a training in the valley today, but I maintained the speed limit coming over, so.
Thank you.
Yes, so I'm here today to update you on the status of the restoration work doing on the watershed. Scott has this map here that shows the outline of the watershed. We have completed approximately 2/3 of the salvage operations we're doing out there this year. The areas in gray are the portions of the property that burned that we put under permit and actually did the salvaging on. The third area down here we have not completed. We were on schedule to do it, and the log market this year was very high and then it's gone through a terrible crash. And the mills cut us off. And until further notice, we can't sell the logs. Our purchase agreement with the mill will expire. We've actually delivered the amount of volume we told them we were going to deliver. So we're sort of at a standstill right now until the market recovers and we try to merchandise the logs off this last piece again. The good news is this piece here is not burned as bad, and so we're able to get in and treat the areas where the fire was most severe. So we did about 560 acres we put in our permit. We ended up harvesting about 450 acres. We had projected that we were going to harvest about 2,150,000 board feet. We ended up overrunning, and we ended up cutting approximately 2.5 million board feet. On the revenue side, we had projected the whole thing when we were done, we were going to, and the city was going to end up with about $488,000. Right now, after taking out costs for taxes, paying the forestry, we're actually at about 516. So we're about 30,000 to the good, and we still have a third of it to go. So that's,
Excuse me, did you say that you netted out the reforestation part of it?
we've netted out the original estimate of revenue to the city was $488,000, and that was for gross receipts from sales, less paying the contractor to do the harvest operation, less the forestry cost, paying my firm to do this, less the yield taxes that we paid on the harvest. So right now we have about $516,000 in the kitty, of which hopefully we're going to finish our restoration plan and be able to put that money back into.
So the restoration cost still comes out of that amount?
Yes.
Right, okay.
And then Jerry?
I guess my question is, I know that we were under a time limit for the harvesting and permits and all that. Obviously, at this point, would we have to get new permits and stuff for the rest of it?
So I actually have the permit for this one approved.
Okay.
It's a one-year permit. It's valid for about the time that the wood will still be merchantable.
Okay.
After which it will start to lose merchantability pretty fast because of bugs and rot.
And then, I guess, reference that, so is there an approximate time? I mean, is it like August of next year, or?
Well, we had the permit approved, I want to say, the beginning of October, so that's kind of our deadline.
So October this coming year?
Yeah.
So with that in mind, what happens if we get to that period? Does this mean we have is it been cut, or is it cut and sitting there, or still standing?
It's still standing right now.
So would it be, at that point, would we, I guess, have an additional cost associated with maybe cleaning that up?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, the one thing about that stand is it's almost 100% Douglas fir, so it's not susceptible to pine beetles like we have on the rest of the forest. So I'm not really worried about an infestation at that point. There is a road that goes through this piece that then goes up to Laughlin Peak, and that's where all the telecommunication trucks drive up and down. So there would be some hazard trees I would recommend we would take off if they're dead adjacent to the road. But I'm still hoping we're going to be able to merchandise that. And again, it's probably going to be April before the market comes back around and the woods are drying up.
But towards the end, if it looks like we're not going to be able to, you'd be able to tell Scott, or you produce a report that says chop the following trees out so
Absolutely.
that we're covered, and then we would be able to project, use some of that revenue we've gotten to clean that up.
Yeah. So the other part of the things we're doing out here, so we finished that harvesting. We've had the CAL FIRES come out, inspect it. It's all signed off. It's all put to bed for the winter. We've done all the erosion control. We spread tons of mulch out there. It looks really good. The other good thing is that we ended up, although we ended up cutting more volume than I initially estimated. There's a lot of nice green trees that survived up there too. So it's looking good, and so I think we're getting a lot of nice natural regeneration from that. And then we don't have a moonscape up there by any means. It's a lot of trees still around. We have also, we've been writing a restoration plan that's probably 90% done. The last component to go into it is I've been working on some different grants. And so I can report that we've been successful in securing about $130,000 from the California Greenhouse Gas Fund, and it's directly for reforestation. So on top of the money we've generated, we have another $130,000 that's pretty much going to pay our planning cost out there, which is really good. And now I'm working with, also again with the local resource conservation district, and we're looking at doing this is conceptual, but this is a shaded fuel break between the watershed and Pine Mountain. And we've been out there looking at this thing, and this would be from the California Climate Initiative, and we would create a shaded fuel break where essentially we go in and take the ladder fuels out and all the small trees and leave the big overstory in like an 85% canopy. It would be about 200 to 300 feet wide. Half of it would be on the city's property. The Conservation District's now contacting all the landowners on this side to see if they'll participate so we can make this more feasible. And again, it would protect fire from coming from the watershed into Pine Mountain or vice versa. And then we're also looking at doing a shaded fuel break along the main road all the way through the property. Essentially, we're trying to box in the watershed from fire coming in and then rolling into Willits. I don't know yet how much money we can get on this thing. I'm proposing that they pay 100% of it. We'll see. I haven't made estimates yet. But that's kind of where we are with the harvest and what we've done so far. And so it's turned out pretty well. I'm very pleased with it. And like I said, it's ready for whenever we get some weather this winter, if we ever do. And we'll hit the ground hard running again next year if we can get down to this bottom piece.
Yeah, Larry.
When will the reforesting start?
So we have, there's about 40,000 trees that we have available to us this year that Rotary procured right after the fire, and they have been willing to donate them to us. They're donated to anybody who was burned out in the Redwood fire. So they're spreading some of those over on the other side of the hill in Redwood Valley, and we're going to get some of those. So we will do a little bit of planting this winter, but really our plan is to be planting the following winter. Our goal this year was to try to get the salvage wood off and do any site preparation we need to do for the planting. The type of harvesting we did up there was mechanized harvesting. We took whole trees out, so we didn't leave a ton of slash up in the forest. We brought the timber down and processed it on the landing. So the site's pretty good to plant, but we still need to do some site prep up there. And then there's a lot of small trees that were submergible that died. There was a lot of pine plantations up there that are still potentially a bug infestation problem, and there's still fuels up there. And so, you know, when I finish the restoration plan and after I talk to Stephanie and Scott and make my recommendations to them and come to you, I mean, ultimately what I would like to do is get in there, masticate a lot more of those fuels, turn them into chips on the ground, get rid of those ladder fuels, reduce that potential for bug infestation, and then create these fuel breaks, which I think are going to just be a great resource so we don't end up having happen what has been happening so much to other communities. I think it's pretty important.
Yeah. So I'm curious about the replanting. How does that work? Do you just put the trees in the ground and go away, or do you come back and make sure they grow, or what's the program with that?
So we're looking at planting approximately 190 trees per acre. So they're going to be, that ends up being about a 15 by 15 foot spacing. So we plant those in the wintertime. You're going to have maybe 20% mortality on those trees, so we might end up with 160 trees per acre growing. Part of the grant that we already received, there's a monitoring component to go in and make sure that we have a certain amount of survival up there. But this is a different situation, a different time we're going into. You know, once upon a time, people wanted to plant, they wanted to go plant 300 trees per acre. And what you end up is this very dense stands that are very prone to fire. And so we're kind of falling away from that. And I don't mind if some deer eat some of the trees and a few of the trees die. The main thing is we want to have canopy up there to reduce erosion, and we want it to aesthetically look nice. But we don't want too many trees up there and too much fuel. You need some trees to shade out the brush, because brush is worse than trees. So we will be going back in, and this is not just we're done with this thing. There could be ongoing monitoring of this and then maintaining these shaded fuel breaks and the forest as we go forward, you know. And there's lots of different ways to do that. We could do that through volunteer work. We could do it through other grants that come in and help us do different steps of maintaining as we go forward.
So do I understand that once you finish harvesting and replanting these areas that we contracted with you, you're still going to continue to come back and maintain the fire breaks and the growing trees?
Yeah, so, I mean, actually, right now, you've contracted with me to implement the permitting to do the salvage operation and write a restoration plan. And then we've contemplated phase 2 would be implementing the restoration plan, which would be doing the planting, potentially doing mastication, looking for grant money, and then depending on what kind of money we can get or how much revenue we generate out of this and what you guys agreed to do, there's a lot of potential projects to do up there. There's a whole road system up here that is full of watercourse crossings that it's been in place for 25 to 30 years, and the culverts are starting to rust out and they're undersized, and as far as the watershed health and preventing sediment from going to the reservoir, so Scott still has water at the bottom. Those are things that the revenue we're generating out of this that I would like to see the money go to, fuel treatments and road watercourse crossing upgrades. But we're not quite there yet, so there'll be more to report on that as we finish doing some of this stuff. So I'm sorry, Ron, if I completely answered your question there or not, but.
Come back.
Well, obviously, I guess what I was talking about would be an additional agreement with you going down the road.
Yeah, like I said, there's a second phase that's contemplated, this phase 2, which was part of our proposal to implement the actual recommendations we make out of the restoration plan.
Okay,
so.
Good.
Have you been taking photos as this has been going on, and maybe at some point I'd be curious to see those, or have a site visit, but I would love to visualize what
I think it's really critical that as we go into the winter period, we have fresh erosion control on all the roads and water bars, that we stay off of those this first winter as much as possible. But I think next year, once we get into the spring and the roads are firm again, it would be great for people to come up and see. And we're going to do a bunch of burning up there this winter, more than likely, and we'll probably use, Scott and I have been talking about using the conservation crews to do the burning. So we'll secure the permits for it.
Wonderful. Any other?
I just wanted to say thank you very much, and it's a great resource that we have our watershed there, and that folks like you and Scott's leadership that are allowing us to manage our resource for the benefit of our community and our watershed.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I agree. It's a beautiful watershed. It's been a pleasure to work up there. All right, well, thank you.
Well said, Jared. Oh, I just said well said, Jared.
Okay, good. All right, so we are now done with item 10 and done with item 3E. So we're on City Council, committee, boards, and agency reports. I always get confused with those two. So we'll just go down the line if you have any agencies that you want to report about. Jerry?
I was on LAFCO, met on the 5th, I guess, and let's see, and basically paid bills. Not much happened out of the house. There was an update on work plan, and obviously there was talk with what Dusty had brought up, that the city was doing some meeting with the county before they bring back the SOI.
MCOG met, and we had a field trip. We have a couple of those a year, and we looked over the Willits, new paving and everything that's gone on in Willits, and had a person from Caltrans describe it to everybody, and it went over. They really did a nice job. If everybody's seeing it. Another thing is that we went over and stopped and really looked at the Sherwood entrance, and that is really a big feat. And we took in a section that Willits is going to do on Blosser, and it's the first time that I probably have, in all the years that I've lived in Willits, stood at the corner of Blosser Lane and Highway 20. The city has to do something about that. If those cars and trucks go 50 and 60 miles an hour down through there, and there's no way that anybody is walking can get across that street. And that's got to be something that we have to really depend upon and do something about. Anyhow, I just couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe it. Thank you.
Ron,
No, nothing.
Lisa Green?
Well, Madge and I attended the Caltrans meeting. None of the other committees or boards that I serve on had a meeting besides Caltrans, and I think Stephanie brought up the issue of the rails on the sidewalks. Maybe you could elaborate on that?
Sure. Well, Councilmember Stransky brought to my attention, there's an electrical box that kind of comes up at the corner of East Mendocino and Main Street, and there's a curb there at an awkward position, and I actually kind of fell over that last Friday and saw, that's exactly what Councilmember Stransky was telling me about. So we brought that up, and they said that they were going to put rails on that so that people that would not be a trip hazard. So that was good. The other issue we did bring up, I think we did talk about Blosser Lane and the speed in which people traveled. There was not a lot of traction when we kind of complained about that, but we did actually bring that up, that it is a problem. That is definitely a problem. And the other news that was brought up is there was a question about relinquishment. And Caltrans had originally proposed a subsequent relinquishment, and that we first would be relinquished the first part of Main Street and then where Sherwood Road is after that was complete. The city had wanted that to be in one relinquishment effort with one stroke of the pen, so that we could sort of see how Main Street was going to survive the winter with the new drainage and the new pavement and everything. And after thinking about it, Caltrans decided that that was a good idea, and they are going to do that relinquish after Sherwood Road is finished. It's going to be one relinquishment, and we should be looking at that around March, I believe that they said, that they should be completed with that work.
They're going to start the process but not have it done till June, I think.
Right,
is what I heard, yeah.
and there's a 90-day period where they sort of give us the paperwork for relinquishment, and then we have it for 90 days, and as soon as the project's done, there's going to be a relinquishment.
We're talking 2019, right?
This is the time I would also report on the, or is that at another?
I think that would be here. Yeah.
Okay. The Visit Willits Tourism Board has 4 items on their agenda. It's the day before Thanksgiving on Wednesday. At 4 o'clock, we'll be discussing what's also on the agenda tonight about any kind of holiday decorating or lighting. We'll be approving new members who we received applications for. And then importantly, we'll be having a presentation from the Willits Chamber of Commerce, who's interested in partnering with the Visit Willits Tourism to improve a marketing plan for businesses in Willits.
Yeah, Chamber of Commerce has hired a new director.
Yes, they have.
That's very, very exciting. Okay, I wanted to report that Mendo Recycle, otherwise known as the Mendocino County Solid Waste Management, whatever it is, MSWA, met the day after our previous meeting, so October 25th. There were a few items, but the main thing that we're dealing with is the fact that Robert Carlson, the general manager, is going to be leaving, and we are going to have a special meeting to review where we stand with that the 19th, on Monday the 19th, here in this very same spot at 10 o'clock in the morning. So if there's any other interested people about general manager for solid waste, get in touch. And EDFC met on the 8th, and I wasn't able to attend. So I don't know what happened there. I will let you know when I find out. So those are all of our committee and agency reports. Council member reports. Go ahead and let's talk about the street lighting, just to inform the public and ourselves about that.
I'm just going to jump in here. Normally, I have been told that normally our Christmas tree lighting or holiday tree lighting at the library occurs at the first Friday of December. In discussions with the mayor, it was noted that Thanksgiving actually comes kind of early in November, and that should probably be moved up a week, and that gives a little extra time for the holiday season. So the lighting of the tree will be the last Friday of November. And the decorations that the city puts up on the street will happen the following Monday. And the ceremonies and that happen at the tree lighting is something that the chamber puts on, and they have contacted us, and they are going to be doing some sort of wonderful program there, and we look forward to that. But we are in charge of lighting up the tree, and we've sort of done some trial runs already, and it's going to look great. Bill Wilson's on it.
Last year, Annabelle Corral sang for that. I don't know if you're going to try to get them again or not.
It's a chamber thing, so maybe the chamber.
The tree?
The tree lighting is a chamber event.
Okay.
The Roots of Motive Power, the Mendocino County Museum, and the chamber all collaborated for prior years.
Contact Don Willis at City Council. Okay. I wanted to just mention that, Willits Economic Localization is going to be celebrating all the work that we've been doing for the past several months on beautifying and painting colorful places in the city with the various fire hydrants, trash receptacles, the K-rails over here at the corner, some photographs and some empty street windows. And so the celebration party is on Sunday, December 2nd at 4 o'clock over at the Willits Hub. And everybody's invited to that. We'll have some pictures of what's going on. And Just Enough, our wonderful local trio, will be performing. They're entertaining us, and should be a nice party. And any other community reports?
I recently came on to the West Company Board, and not only of what they're doing tomorrow here, kind of a thing of first thing of things to come, not only here in Ukiah, but they are now active in Ukiah, and their hope is to become active here in the coming year. They've secured additional funding. They're also looking at expanding into Lake County, and so their idea is they want to serve, they've got different missions in different areas depending on the funding, but the idea is to help the small businesses here and to be a resource. So I look forward to bringing more information as things come down. So, and the director has apparently already been in contact with Stephanie. So
we've talked before.
Okay, I guess that's sort of a combination of reports in good and welfare. Were there any things that we've missed? And if not, we're going to adjourn the regular meeting and go into closed session. We have two items. One is the ADA status of that legal action, and then continuation of a staff review. Thank you. We'll report out if there's anything to report out.